It's The Nutcracker Prince from 1990. It was released by Warner Brothers in limited theaters, but something about it just screams low-budget knockoff. I like this one. Well, I like most of it. Let's get into why. Right off the bat, this movie managed to win me over. We focus on Clara, a girl stuck between childhood and adulthood, and this struggle is depicted with a type of subtlety that is usually absent from these lower-budget animated movies. She plays with dolls and runs around with her little brother, and she makes faces at her sister and teases her over having a boyfriend. But at the same time, she watches the dancers at her Christmas party with eager eyes, not entirely sure of how to join them, and she dreams of a world bigger than her living room. I love this angle for Clara's character. The Nutcracker story is heavily based on dream sequences, and a lot of adaptations take this as an opportunity to discuss how much you should get lost in your own fantasies and when it's time to come back to Earth. Some versions handle this idea better than others, and this one is a positive example, because the question comes from Clara herself. It's not a case of her being perfectly happy with her daydreams and the adults in her life insisting that she is too old for them. Here, Clara is the one wondering whether it's time to grow up and leave her toys behind. And 15 minutes in, the animation style changes for the worse. So far, the style had been pretty standard. It had moments of beautiful fluidity, but also some choppier bits where you could see the corners were cut. The colors were nice and warm, the backgrounds had some complex shading here and there, and the character movements felt rather natural. This is all depicting the Christmas party at Clara's house, including the usual story bits like getting a Nutcracker doll as a gift from Drosselmeyer and having her brother break it. As Clara sulks in anger, Drosselmeyer decides to tell her the tale of his nephew, a young boy who was put under a nasty spell and changed into the very doll she holds. This bit is told in a much more cartoony style, with simple shapes, backgrounds, and animation. The colors are flashy, the perspective and proportions are wonky on purpose, the movements are exaggerated, and the characters themselves are much more one-dimensional. It's a weird shift that completely clashes with the previous style and doesn't even add much to the story being told. When we got to this change, I was worried that the rest of the movie was going to be like this. But no, this lasts for another 15 minutes and then we're back to the old animation style, which the movie thankfully sticks with for the rest of the runtime. According to Drosselmeyer, the Nutcracker will remain under a spell until he kills the Mouse King and wins the hand of a fair maiden. Clara, who has become enamored with the doll, sneaks into the living room in the middle of the night to play with it, introducing it to all of her other toys as if it were their ruler. That's when Drosselmeyer shows up as a ghost and casts a magic spell that brings all toys to life, right as the house is attacked by the Mouse King and his army. The Nutcracker awakens and has to lead the soldiers to battle. Clara saves him from being killed, but hits her head and wakes up in bed the next day, wondering if this was all a dream. But on the next night, she sneaks back to the living room to do the exact same thing again. We have another Drosselmeyer ghost moment and another battle, and it's weird that they split it into two separate nights. It's not like Clara got up to any adventures while she was awake. This time though, the Nutcracker succeeds in slaying the king, and they actually show his sword covered in blood, which is more violence than I was expecting from this kind of movie. But little did I know, this was only a taste of what's to come. The final 10 minutes of the movie are honestly fantastic. There's the romance between Clara and the Nutcracker, the resolution to Clara's character arc with whether or not she's ready to grow up, a surprisingly intense showdown between Clara and the Mouse King, who is dragging himself half dead, holding onto his bleeding chest with nothing but rage in his eyes. And the Nutcracker can't do anything but watch as he slowly and painfully regresses into his doll form. It's effective, it's dramatic, it's great. I love it. This movie has issues. There's the weird animation switch, the awkward splitting of the battle into two different nights, and there's also how Clara doesn't do anything while those battles are happening. Like, just squash the mouse, girl. Go get a broom or something. But the stuff that works really works. I love the character designs. There's this generic 90s beauty to them, and it fully adds to the atmosphere for me. I also love the character of the Nutcracker. I love his switching between his doll form and his living form, and he's always so polite and soft-spoken. I can see why Clara was into the guy. So much of the movie seems to happen in those final 10 minutes, which can be considered a bit of a pacing issue, but I just enjoy the sequence of events so much that I don't want to complain about it. If I had this VHS as a kid, it would have been a rewatch staple. This was a delightful little treat that makes me feel very glad I started this project, and I hope your heart has room for a Nutcracker Prince.